Greetings, aspirants. Hope you all are doing well. The Palestinian militant group Hamas launched an unprecedented assault on Israel on 7th October with hundreds of gunmen infiltrating communities near the Gaza Strip. More than 1,400 Israelis were killed, while Israeli military says more than 220 soldiers and civilians, which includes women and children, were taken to Gaza as hostages. More than 5,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been killed in air and artillery strikes, which were carried out by the Israeli military in response, according to Gaza's health ministry. Israeli troops have also marched along the Gaza boundary, and Palestinians are bracing themselves for a major ground operation. So, in this context, we'll try to look at how the issue started from the historical perspective, creation of Israel, about the Gaza Strip, main problems between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and then the present issue. So, if we look at the history first, initially, Britain took control of the area known as the Palestine following the defeat of the Ottoman Empire, which ruled the part of the Middle East in the World War I. The land was inhabited by a Jewish minority and Arab majority, as well as other smaller ethnic groups. Now, tensions between the two groups grew when the international community gave the United Kingdom the task of establishing a national home in Palestine for the Jewish people. This stemmed from the Balfour Declaration of 1970. Know that it is a pledge made by the then Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour to the Britain's Jewish community. The declaration was enshrined in the British mandate over Palestine and was endorsed by the newly created League of Nations, which is a forerunner of the United Nations in the year 1922. To Jews, Palestine was their ancestral home, but Palestinian Arabs also claimed the land and opposed the move. So, in between 1920s and 1940s, the number of Jews arrived there increased, with many fleeing from persecution in Europe. Violence between Jews and Arabs and against British rule also increased. In 1947, the United Nations voted for Palestine to be split into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem becoming an international city. That plan was accepted by the Jewish leaders but was rejected by the Arab side and hence was never implemented. Now, how and why the Israel state was created? In 1948, unable to solve the problem, Britain withdrew and Jewish leaders declared the creation of the State of Israel. It was intended to be a safe haven for the Jews fleeing persecution as well as a national homeland for Jews. Fighting between Jewish and Arab militias have been intensified for months, and the day after Israel declared statehood, 5 Arab countries attacked. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians fled or were forced out of their homes in what they call Al-Nakba or the catastrophe. By the time the fighting ended in ceasefire the following year, Israel controlled most of the territory. Then Jordan occupied land which became known as the West Bank, and Egypt occupied Gaza. Jerusalem was divided between the Israeli forces in the west and Jordanian forces in the east. This happened because there was never a peace agreement. There were more wars and fighting in following decades. In a war in 1967, Israel occupied East Jerusalem and the West Bank, as well as most of the Syrian Golan Heights, Gaza, and the Egyptian Sinai Peninsula. Most Palestinian refugees and their descendants live in Gaza and the West Bank, as well as in the neighboring Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. So, neither they nor their descendants have been allowed by the Israel to return to their homes. Israel says this would overwhelm the country and threaten its existence as a Jewish state. Israel still occupies the West Bank and claims the whole Jerusalem as its capital, while the Palestinians claim East Jerusalem as the capital of a hoped for future Palestine state. The United States is one of the only a handful of countries to recognize the city as Israel's capital. In the past 50 years, Israel has built settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, where more than 7 lakhs Jews now live. Settlements are held to be illegal under international law. This is the position of the UN Security Council and the United Kingdom government, among others, although Israel rejects this. Now, what is this Gaza Strip? See, Gaza is a narrow strip of land which is sandwiched between Israel and the Mediterranean Sea, but with a short southern border with Egypt. This strip is just 41 kilometers long and 10 kilometers wide. It has more than 2 million inhabitants and is one of the most densely populated places on the earth. In the wake of the 1948-49 war, Gaza was occupied by Egypt for 19 years. Then, Israel occupied Gaza in the 1967 war and stayed till 2005, during that time building Jewish settlements. Israel withdrew its troops and settlers in 2005, though it retained control over its airspace, shared border and shoreline. The United Nations still considers the territory to be occupied by Israel. Now, what are the main problems between the Israelis and the Palestinians? There are a number of issues which the two sides cannot agree on. Firstly, what should happen to Palestinian refugees? Then, whether Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank should stay or to be removed. Thirdly, whether the two sides should share Jerusalem. Lastly, whether a Palestinian state should be created alongside Israel. Why do you think Israel and Gaza are at war now? See, Gaza is ruled by Hamas. Know that it is an Islamist group which is committed to the destruction of Israel. Also, it is designated as a terrorist group by the United Kingdom and many other countries. Hamas won the Palestinians' last elections in 2006 and seized control of the Gaza the following year by ousting a rival Fatah movement of West Bank-based President Mahmoud Abbas. Since then, militants in Gaza have fought several wars with Israel, which along with Egypt has maintained a partial blockade on the strip to isolate Hamas and try to stop the attacks, particularly the indiscriminate firing of rockets towards the Israeli cities. Palestinians in Gaza say that Israel's restrictions and its airstrikes on heavily populated areas amount to collective punishment. This year has been the deadliest year on record for Palestinians in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. They also complain of the restrictions and military actions being carried out there in response to deadly attacks on Israelis. These tensions could have been one of the reasons for Hamas' latest attack. But the militants may also have been seeking to boost their popularity among the ordinary Palestinians, including by using hostages to pressure Israel to free some of the estimated 4,500 Palestinians held in its prisons. Now, internationally, let us see who supports Israel in the current conflict and who does not. The US, the European Union, and other Western countries have all condemned the Hamas attack on Israel. The United States, which is Israel's closest ally, has over the years given the Jewish state more than $260 billion in both military and economic aid and has promised additional equipment which includes air defense missiles, guided bombs and ammunition. It has also sent two aircraft carrier strike groups to the eastern Mediterranean to deter Israel's enemies, particularly Lebanon's Hezbollah movement, from opening a second front in the war. Russia and China have both refused to condemn Hamas and say that they are maintaining a contact with both the sides in the conflict. Russian President Vladimir Putin has blamed United States policy for the absence of peace in the Middle East. Iran, which is Israel's arch enemy, is a key supporter of Hamas as well as Hezbollah, whose militants have been exchanging fire with Israeli forces almost daily since the Hamas attack. Questions have been asked about Iran's role in the Hamas attack after reports said it gave the go-ahead days before. Tehran has, however, denied any involvement. So this is what is happening at present in between those two. So we have discussed all we need to know about this issue on a whole. We'll be back again with another topic. Thank you.